The Kraken spent most of the game in the offensive end, outshot the Stars by a good margin, outhit the Stars, and even managed to kill off all the power plays, which did include 2 of their own, but still, with everything then at 5-on-5, that's a recipe usually for success. But they made just enough mistakes to lose the game, and the Stars took advantage of the opportunities they were given. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken fall in Game 5, 5-2 to the Dallas Stars, in a game that, honestly, I felt like for maybe the first time in the playoffs for the Kraken, the team that played better ended up losing. I mean, that's certainly been the case anyway in this series so far, and I can't think of a game in the Avalanche series where I felt like one team overcame the flow of play to end up winning the game like what happened in this game. Now, credit to the Stars, they did play very well in their end of the ice defensively, which is good for them because they again spent the vast majority of the game there, which they were able to do by keeping most of the Kraken's 31 shots to the outside and not allowing a ton of presence for the Kraken around or in front of the Dallas net, which then allowed Ottinger to see a lot of those shots coming and make enough of the saves to end up winning his team the game. Really, for him, I thought having his best game at least since game 2, if not of the series so far. Meanwhile, at the other end of the ice, the Kraken honestly didn't make a ton of mistakes and only allowed 21 shots on goal, so decent defensively from that perspective, but they made enough mistakes that allowed Dallas to get those high danger scoring opportunities, and when they did make mistakes, they were pretty bad ones that didn't give Grubauer much chance. And there were enough of them that Dallas was able to capitalize on them to win this game. That having been said, though, as this game gets off to a not particularly great start for the Kraken, as the Stars are already up 2-0 by the 6-minute mark of the game, really neither one of these goals comes off of terrible defensive mistakes. The first one, honestly, I think is just a nice play from especially Jamie Benn, but as well Wyatt Johnston, as Ben gets a pass from out behind the net, winning it along the boards, gets that up in front to Wyatt Johnston, and Borgen tries to intercept that pass, or at least break it up, and then is also in position to block the shot from Johnston, but he isn't able to get a stick on the pass, and then the shot from Johnston gets just through Borgen, and right in past the post through Grubauer to give Dallas that early 1-0 lead. And then the second goal, a couple minutes later, honestly, this is just one that Grubauer has to have. Now, yes, you can point out that the Kraken didn't make it terribly difficult for the Stars to get into the offensive end with the puck here, so Hintz could get this shot off, and that honestly was kind of a theme for the Kraken defensively in this game. They didn't spend a ton of time in their defensive end. Again, just 21 shots, and really a lot of those ended up coming off of the rush. But the times they did end up in the defensive end of the ice, they really weren't making it too hard for the Stars to get across the blue line more often than not. Now, the neutral zone was a different thing. They actually did a pretty good job, I thought, of clogging up the neutral zone and creating turnovers there to get back into the offensive end. But you gotta make it harder to get into the offensive end for the other team so that it isn't just rush chances getting up towards the net. Again, this one doesn't end up getting towards the net as Hintz fires off this shot from well out and just beats Grubauer clean over the glove hand. At the very least, though, the Kraken were able to stop the bleeding there, at least for the first period anyway, as they pretty much spent the last 10 minutes of this first period in the offensive end, again, getting a lot of shots on goal as they finished the first period with, I think it was 14 shots on goal. So for the Kraken, one of their better periods when it comes to shots on goal anyway, of not just this series, but the playoffs in general. The Stars, though, like I mentioned, and really especially here in this first period, were keeping the vast majority, if not pretty much all of these 14 shots to the outside and making Ottinger's job much easier than it has been maybe in the 2 games leading up to this. Though I will say, even at that, it really didn't seem like Ottinger was fighting the puck too much, like we had kind of see him do in both games 3, certainly, and even game 4, even though the Stars won that game, it really didn't seem like Ottinger was on his game. The Kraken just couldn't make anything happen at their end of the ice. So, yeah, this one was one where maybe it was the Kraken, because of all these shots from the outside and not getting the traffic around the net, allowed Ottinger to get settled into the game. Or maybe it was just that Ottinger was finally playing like the Ottinger we expected coming into the series and just haven't really seen consistently to this point. Either way, it hardly matters because at the end of the period, the result is the same. Ottinger has made all 14 of the saves on Kraken shots. Meanwhile, at the other end of the ice, whether it was a nice play by the Stars or one that Grubauer really should have had, 2 of the 7 Stars shot in this first period have gone into the Kraken net, and they have the 2-0 lead going into the second. A 2-0 lead that 35 seconds into the second period becomes a 3-0 Stars lead, as the Kraken defensively just completely fall apart like a limp noodle in front of Grubauer. It is a 3-on-3 rush for the Stars, but it looks, never mind an odd man rush, that might as well have been a 3-on-0, as the Kraken defensively just, which it is the top pair of Larson and Dunn, and then I can't remember who the forward was. I want to say it was Tolvanen or maybe Wemberg. Either way, it's three perfectly capable defensive players for the Kraken that just back up from the blue line all the way through the Kraken end, allowing the Stars to just do whatever the heck they want with all the open ice in the world. They pass it around. Eventually, it's Pavelski, I think, that gets the shot off. I can't remember who it was that gets the original shot. Grubauer makes one save, but since the Stars have been able to do whatever the heck they want, again, by this point, Larson has his back to the play, and the other two haven't done anything either. Pavelski gets the rebound, which, yeah, there is some aspect of it seems like in this series, Pavelski has a magnet on the back of his stick for whatever type of rubber the puck is made out of. So the rebound goes straight to Pavelski, and he puts it in past Grubauer to make it 3-0. Again, yeah, it's 3 goals now on 8 shots, but although you could argue that Grubauer, and I don't even think argue, you can definitely put that second goal on Grubauer, this one is not on him whatsoever. The Kraken defensively just may as well have not played the first 40 seconds of this second period. And now, at this point, still just seconds into the second period with the vast majority of the game still left, it already feels like the Stars have this game won, and we're coming back to Seattle with the Kraken in the do or die mode, having to win the final 2 to pull away the series. Because, well, again, there's still pretty much 40 minutes left of this game. The Kraken, in their history, even with how good this season has been, have yet to come back from a 3-goal deficit to win the game. They did manage to do it once in actually their first season to tie the game and I think force overtime in that one, but ended up losing to the Columbus Blue Jackets in that game at home in the first season. But every game is different, and we've seen throughout the course of the season that this Kraken team is different themselves. And while it hasn't happened yet, and 3-goal comebacks aren't necessarily common, you'd have to think eventually they're going to get one, and, well, no time is better than here in Game 5 of the second round. And if you're going to make that comeback happen, it has to start somewhere, and being the quick response team on the rush that they have been all season long, they make it happen a minute and a half later, as it's Beniers to Cartier through the neutral zone, Cartier up to Eberle, Eberle through a couple of Dallas defenders who, although they maybe could have made this rush a little bit harder for the Kraken, at least unlike the Kraken at the beginning of the second period on the Dallas rush, they are able to at least get some sticks in the passing lane. Still, Eberle's able to get it through those sticks to the far side for Adam Larson, of all people, coming down into the play. Larson gets the pass from Eberle and gets it past the glove side of Ottinger to get the Kraken right back that goal and back to within 2. And then not long after, the Kraken get a power play. And hey, maybe this could happen if the Kraken can get a power play goal here. It's only a 1-goal game with still most of the second period left, and then obviously the entire third. And actually, this Kraken power play early on created some good chances. They got a couple of looks for McCann, who was right back on that first power play unit. A couple of those opportunities that they like to get in where he has a chance to skate into a shot up by the faceoff circle. Both of those shots, I think one was blocked, the other one Ottinger makes the save on, and then they get a good look for Tolvanen on the far side, who does end up having that one get blocked in front by, I think it was the shin of Hakanpää. Otherwise, I think he had Ottinger beat. Still, good block there from Hakanpää, and the Kraken eventually do have the rest of this power play killed off, aren't able to capitalize on it, but at least created some good chances, which has been more than we could really say for this power play since McCann went down. But even though they weren't able to score on the power play, not long after it comes to an end, they're right back into the offensive end. Jared McCann with the puck, and I don't know if he was actually going off to complete a change here. Either way, he has it down by the top of the faceoff circle, and then kind of spins back up towards the corner by the blue line, and then just fires the shot towards the net, as there's a little bit of traffic out in front of it for one of the first times in this game. And it goes off of what originally seemed like it was Adam Larson. He's actually the first one to the bench for the high five line. But on further review, it goes off of the skate of Hanley right before it hits Larson and in just past the post, squeaking between the post and Ottinger's toe to get into the net and pull the Kraken to within 1, still with 12 minutes of the second period left. They are really making it look like they could make this comeback happen, and McCann has his first to the playoffs, his first playoff goal of his career actually, and becomes the 18th Kraken player to score a goal in this postseason run. And since I had someone ask on the stream, weirdly enough, the one Kraken player who's played significant minutes in this postseason so far that hasn't scored yet is Ryan Donato, who I don't think very many people would have in their top 5 as far as guesses are concerned if you said only one Kraken player wasn't going to score in these playoffs. Outside of Grubauer, obviously, and then Froden, who did play one game, but he didn't play a ton of minutes in that game, so I don't think it's a huge surprise that he also hasn't scored yet. So just like that, over the course of 7 minutes, the Kraken take what looks like a game that might be getting out of hand and completely hopeless for them to win, and turn it around to just a 1-goal deficit with still most of the game remaining. And on top of that, once again, they get a power play just a couple minutes later. But this time, Schultz ends up getting called for an interference. And honestly, I don't know if he saw the guy coming. It's hard to tell. The replay made it look like they just kind of backed into each other. Either way, it's definitely interference on Schultz that kills off the remaining 90 seconds of the Kraken power play. So we were only 30 seconds into it at that point. Still, 4-on-4, the Kraken did look pretty good. Really, they haven't looked great at 4-on-4 all season, or really even in the first series against the Avalanche, but have been pretty decent even though they haven't scored on it so far in this series against the Stars, with the exception being that mistake they made at the end of 4-on-4 going into the Dallas power play in Game 4. Either way, they still don't score on it here, do kill off without too much trouble the 30 seconds of Stars power play at the other end, but that sequence did seem to kind of kill the momentum that the Kraken had been building through those 7 or so minutes that they had created that majority of the comeback. And with that momentum killed off, the Stars are able to kill off the rest of the second period. Really, again, not getting a ton of offense, but not giving the Kraken very many chances either through the back half, and eventually getting another power play in the final 16 seconds, which they very nearly score on right away, but Grubauer comes up with a big save. The Kraken also defensively able to clear the puck out and survive what could have been a disastrous end to the second period that they had really fought back hard to get back into this game in. And then in the third period, although the Kraken do a good job of killing off the rest of the Stars power play, actually getting the only shot attempt of the power play for themselves, well, of the part of the power play that's in the third period anyway for themselves. However, the rest of this third period, at least the first 10 minutes of it, are just really well played defensively by the Stars. The Kraken can't get much of anything going offensively. They get a couple of attempts in the offensive end, but just can't create any momentum or get much to the net. And eventually, as we get into the back half of the third, with time starting to wind down, but the Kraken's still within 1, it's another play that starts behind the net, and this one, the problem here, again, is defense. I can't remember who it was that had the puck behind the net for the Stars, but he gets it out in front. Actually, I think it was Jason Robertson that has the puck behind the net. Really, Robertson not having a particularly great series, doesn't have a goal yet in it, which it seems like that's coming, and hopefully it doesn't, because now the Kraken have to win these last 2 games. But he does make the assist happen here as he gets the puck out in front of the net, which, again, you'd like to maybe get a stick on that and prevent it from getting out in the net in the first place, but as long as you can clog up the front of the net and not allow a shot to come off of that, it's really not a problem. But of course, the Kraken have allowed 2 Stars players to get out in front of the net with just 1 Kraken defender there, and not only that, it's probably the 2 Stars players you'd least like to have in front of the net, especially if Robertson's the one behind it making the pass, that being Pavelski and Rope Hintz. The pass gets through Larson, who I'm pretty sure was the one that's locking up Pavelski a bit here. Still, even with 1 defender on Pavelski, Pavelski is able to get the inside towards the slot on Larson, and then gets the pass over to Hintz, who's wide open. Hintz fires off that shot into the top corner, and while originally it was waved off, the lights go off, the fans cheer, even the Stars thought it was in, but play goes on. Eventually, play is blown dead as the situation room, or whatever they call the people in Toronto, do eventually call in saying, yeah, no, that actually did go in the net. You gotta stop it and get back to the clock where it was. So yeah, unfortunately, the official was wrong here. It does go into the net, and it is 4-2 Stars. And once again, just to be clear, this one definitely not on Grubauer whatsoever. Again, it's not his fault that the Kraken defensively allowed 2 of the best Stars forwards to be left mostly alone in front of their net. They've got two guys closer to the slot than any Kraken player, and right up in front of the net. The pass gets to Hintz, who's wide open himself with nobody around him, and Grubauer gave him just that tiny little spot in that top corner to try and put it into, and he was able to do that to give the Stars that 2-goal lead back. The Kraken are able to push back at least a little bit for the next few minutes. They do get a few more shots on goal, but really not too much more dangerous outside of one that Tolvanen does get a pretty juicy rebound out to the other side that, if it had gone to a Kraken stick, would have led to an easy goal. But of course, the Kraken aren't really getting the favor of any bounces. Not that they are creating really enough traffic to give themselves those opportunities. And I guess they did get the one bounce off of Hanley's stick for the second goal. Or skate, not stick. Either way, the Kraken aren't able to find the back of the net again, eventually going empty net with 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And then Jaden Schwartz, who has really been the best skater, I think, so far in these playoffs for the Kraken, has the puck coming up through the neutral zone and then right around center ice, just is a little bit careless with it, gets it poked off his stick, and it goes right back the other way into the empty net from Fosca to make it 5-2, and that would pretty much do it for this game. Again, the Kraken get a little bit more of a press, but aren't able to even get another one back, so Stars win it. And we go to Seattle with the Kraken needing to win 2 in a row to win this series and move on to the conference final, which obviously is not the spot you'd like to be in. You'd much prefer to be in the spot the Kraken were against the Avalanche coming back home for Game 6 with the series lead rather than down one and needing to win it. But on the other, more optimistic hand, it is just a 2-game winning streak that the Kraken need to put together now to move on to the conference final. Which, yes, they'll have to be at their absolute best in order to make that happen, as it seems like the Stars have really settled into this series. So the Kraken are going to have to clean up these mistakes, the sloppy ones that they made, especially throughout Game 4, and enough in spots here and there in Game 5 to allow the Stars to win the game if they want to win both of those games. But they've won twice in a row in 2 different occasions so far in this playoff run, winning games 4 and 5 like the Stars did here in the first series against the Avalanche, and then obviously winning Game 7 and Game 1 of this series. I will say that it would also probably help the Kraken in Game 6 and then Game 7 if there is one, if they could get back to having some consistency when it comes to the lines and have that figured out going into Game 6, where, at least for the back half of this game here in Game 5, it seemed like Hackstall just threw the lines into the blender pretty much after Schultz took that penalty to go to 4-on-4 midway through the second. There was hardly any consistency, it seemed, in which 3 players the Kraken had out on the ice. There were times where Gord was down with the 4th line, McCann was with pretty much all 4 lines in the 3rd period. Really, the only 2 guys that seemed like were consistently together in every shift were Eberle and Beniers. Cartier was with them most of the time, so that first line kind of sticking together, but even McCann came in for Cartier a couple of times, which, yeah, that's a line we probably wouldn't mind seeing back together with McCann up back with Beniers and Eberle. But yeah, you'd like to see especially that Gord line sticking together, and then the second line, whether it's Geekie or McCann, at least keeping Wemberg and Schultz together. I don't know. You got to have something figured out. I will say that I would probably like to see McCann on one of those top 2 lines, so then you either move Geekie or Cartier down, depending on which line you want him on, down back to the 3rd line. Personally, I'd probably go Geekie down to the 4th line just to have a little bit more consistency at center, especially when it comes to faceoffs. So that then puts McCann with Schwartz and Wemberg. That's a pretty good line. You've got Wemberg, a setup guy, with 2 guys that have been able to put the puck in the net, either Schwartz, the leading goal scorer for the Kraken in the playoffs, or McCann, the leading goal scorer from the regular season. Plus, that allows Cartier, who's looked pretty good, but still in his just now 8th or 9th NHL game, 9th for Game 6, to have a little bit more consistency and sticking with the guys that he's been playing with to this point. Regardless, though, at this point, all that really matters for the Kraken is that whichever 5 guys they put out on the ice play at their absolute best, like the season depends on it, because the next 2 games, it does depend on it. Oh, and as far as who's in goal, it's got to be Grubauer in Game 6. I know there's going to be people who are going to be calling for Jones, but again, Jones really didn't have a particularly great end of the season. And for Grubauer, well, it is now, what is it? 10 goals or no, nine goals that have gone past him here in 2 games. Again, I really only think 2 of them were specifically on him. Yeah, you'd maybe like to have 1 or 2 more saves on what would then be pretty spectacular saves for him to make based on what the defense was giving him. but still, it's a lot of defensive mistakes that the Stars were just able to take advantage of, especially in this game, with those mistakes coming with that loaded up first line for the Stars out on the ice. Beyond that, I really don't have that much more to say here about Game 5. It is a bummer that the Kraken, again, I felt like were the better team in this game. Maybe not by a ton, as the Stars did play pretty well defensively, even if they spent the majority of the game in their end of the ice, which is kind of what has that feeling like the Kraken played better. The Stars had more dangerous opportunities because of what the Kraken were giving them defensively. And yeah, the Kraken offensively, although they had a ton of shots, a lot of them were from the outside, and it was a frustration we had pretty much all of last season that they were taking those shots from the outside, but not getting the traffic out in front of the net to give themselves much of a chance on those shots. Still, I would give the Kraken the edge in this game as far as the flow of play is concerned. But for maybe the first time this playoffs, that did not lead to a win. So then all that's left here in Game 5 is to go over the Kraken 3 stars, where I know we can get at least 2. Jared McCann is easily the first star. He was the best skater out on the ice for the Kraken. Like I've said a couple of times, I thought it took him a little bit to warm up into Game 4, his first game back since the injury. But he was all the way back here for Game 5. Just didn't have he did have 1 goal, just not the, hat trick or 4 goals like we saw from Pavelski in his first game back. Either way, McCann the best player out on the ice, and although he started on the 4th line, it was obvious by early on in the second period that he was back, and they started to mix him into the other lines, double shifting him, especially through the 3rd period, to get him out there with, again, I think pretty much all 4 lines he had at least 1 shift with. Second star, I'll go Matty Beniers. He doesn't get on the score sheet in this game, but I thought had a really strong game for the Kraken, a full 200-foot game again, had some really good plays in the defensive end, and was creating in the offensive end, even if it wasn't leading to goals. But regardless of points or no points, I thought he was at least the 3rd best offensive player for the Kraken in this game, behind McCann, and then maybe the best offensive player for the Kraken in this game, which might be a problem, but honestly, he just had a really good offensive game, was Adam Larsson, who I'm not going to give the 3rd star to because defensively, I didn't think he had a particularly great game. Again, that pairing of he and Dunn got taken advantage of a couple of times by that top line of the Stars. So, yeah, I don't really feel great about going Larsson as the 3rd star. I think I would go Brandon Tanev, though. If I'm going to go 3rd star here, I'm a little on the fence about whether I want to do a 3rd star in this game, but I think Tanev was really doing a lot to at least try to create opportunities on the forecheck. Just didn't have a lot of support sometimes. Donato also actually played decently. Just the 2 of them were not really able to connect on a ton of occasions. For whatever reason, that 4th line, all 3 of them had decent games, with McCann being the 3rd one. They just couldn't get a ton going when it came to dangerous scoring chances with the 3 of them out on the ice. So, I don't know, make of that what you will. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of this game. And if you would have 3 stars, who your 3 stars would be, and how we're feeling going into Game 6. Now must win for the Kraken, but at least it's at home. So, yeah. Guess that's all the rambling I have for this one. Let's get it done in Game 6. And if you made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you joined for the stream, thank you very much for joining for that as well. And hopefully we'll have another stream in Game 7 if the Kraken can pull it off in Game 6. Until then, though, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.